address these recent sightings across the world of drones, and how, in my opinion, they're going to coincide with the Agenda 2021 and 2030 to form the new world government. Those of you that have followed me over the years will know that I have had quite a few encounters with aliens, and I've posted a few videos about it. I want to start out with my first earliest encounter, only briefly. How when my family was coming back from my grandparents' cabin, or actually called a cottage on Lake Erie, that was probably my first time I ever seen a UFO. I might do a series about my UFO encounters, but every time I've seen a UFO or have had close contact with the beings inside them, they were always the disc-shaped UFOs. Not Tic Tacs, not drone-shaped or anything like that. Ever since September, these drone sightings have been seen around the world. You'll remember how there was drone sightings in Germany and in Poland, and they all thought it was probably the Russians gathering reconnaissance. And I think that's what's going on now. Except I think here in the U.S. it's turned to a more sinister reasoning. We have rogue military operations currently going on here in the U.S. And even they have suggested that there might be a nuclear threat in the future. No, it's not going to be from some medical device, some small amount of radiation, but maybe the actual center of the nuclear weapon itself that supposedly went missing. Many of the people that are involved used to be members of the Delta Force, Special Force, Green Berets, and also the CIA. And because of greed and the lust for power, they've moved up to become part of this echelon of the globalists that want to control everybody and push the agenda of 2021 and 2030. But to do that, they need a major disaster. Ever since the election, or before the election in September, here in the U.S., these reports about aliens, supposedly, drones, plasma balls, things like that, have been pushed by mainstream media. Not to say that there isn't a few legitimate UFO sightings, but like I said, everyone that I have seen over the years have always been disc-shaped. The technology that the U.S. currently has is probably pretty darn close to what the aliens have. We got multiple UFO alien crafts that we have captured, taken down, sometimes by what they call directional EMP. We have the technology now to create plasma balls. We have the technology to manipulate and control weather and create earthquakes. I was watching a news pod with David Greer, and he says that the technology that we have now, that they're allowing us to have, is like smoke signals compared to what they really do have. We have the ability for anti-gravity crafts. We also have the ability to twist time and make wormholes for intergalactic studies. Many of you remember when I talked about the spacecrafts that I saw entering and leaving the Earth's atmosphere. I called them the intergalactic space shuttles. They would come in on a regular basis above where I was living, like clockwork, on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I believe it was. Dr. Greer believes that all the aliens, I don't know, maybe all of them, maybe he don't believe all of them, but he believes that the majority of them are friendly. I don't believe that, because the one group that I met, which I was abducted by, was not friendly at all. I had a phone conversation telling Linda Moulton how about my experience with these aliens. This was my last experience that I actually remember of being abducted. They were gross looking. Here I have a picture, the best that I could create what they looked like. They were kind of like a mixture, no hair, of maybe Bigfoot, with a lizard type or dinosaur type creature, and their skin was gray with a texture of like scar tissue from being burned, and they could read my mind. I was going to be moving to Northern California. I had just bought a house up there, was saying my goodbyes to my parents, and stayed until about 11:30. I remember we had watched the late night news before I left and headed out, and I was living down by Palo Alto, or in Palo Alto at the time. And I believe it was the interstate, Highway 101, that I was driving on. And I noticed up ahead there was this strange light that seemed to be following me. The highway there had separated. You can see over here it's pretty much close together, but the highway there had separated, and I noticed this strange light in the sky that seemed to be following me, and I started getting scared and devised a plan, or thought of a plan, that if they tried to abduct me again, I would run them over. But here you can see the area where it's divided. It's been separated. So somewhere along here is where they managed to get my vehicle to stop. I don't remember stopping, but all I do is remember being parked along the side of the road and wishing that some other car would come from the opposite direction and maybe see me and call someone for help. But you know, nowadays that don't happen. So there I am, parked, and I believe the doors were locked, the windows were rolled up, and two small grays, I want to say, approached the car with some sort of robot that was floating. Now, the reason I say it was a robot, because it was metallic, metal in its type of material it was made. It reached through the window without breaking the window, like the window became fluid like water, and had 3 fingers. That's the only way I could describe it, 3 fingers. And it grabbed my shoulder, inflicting pain upon my shoulder that was so great I willingly got out of the vehicle. So I went around the front of the car, and there was a maybe a waist-high fence that I had to climb over, but they didn't have to climb over it. They just kind of floated over the fence and got mad that I was delaying them, and crossed me over here towards the west, I guess it would be. And that's when I seen the UFO hovering above in the field. And the last thing I remember is crossing through the grass towards the craft. And the next thing I knew, I was up inside the spaceship. After all this experience happened, I didn't remember it, but I remember driving down the road, being back in my car, driving back down the road, and I thought I heard a beeping sound that brought me back to my senses, and realized that the exit for my turnoff to go home was right there. And it's like, wow, what happened? Did I black out? Here I am. I almost missed my turnoff. When I got home, I had several hours missing. It was like 2:30 in the morning. And here, you know, a half an hour drive ended up taking several hours. And I was accused of being out with the girls to the bar. And, you know, my boyfriend wanted to know where the heck I was at, and he was worried and all that other stuff. It's the memory of what happened slowly came back to me. And I remember being told not to tell anybody, because if I told anybody, they would come back and kill me. That might have been part of what they were using to make sure that, you know, the memory stayed buried. I don't remember anything other than sitting on the side of a white examination table with my legs hanging down, and there was 3 of these creatures talking amongst themselves. They were in like a doorway, much like a revolving door. Many of you might have seen those in apartment or department stores, where they rotate to allow one person through at a time. And they were standing in this circular doorway discussing about what to do with me. 2 of them I knew. Don't ask me how I knew, were saying how they had to let me go, and the other one said they wanted to keep me. And one of the creatures said that they were not allowed to keep me, that I had to be released. So I'm staring at the floor, trying to distract myself because it was a very terrifying experience. And I noticed how the floor was white with like aluminum joints connecting the different squares. They were probably 8-foot squares, I want to say. I could be wrong. They could have been larger. The room had curved walls. I didn't see any lights, but yet the room was completely illuminated. I believe that my family has been one of these families that's been being tracked by these alien beings for generations and generations. The reason I say that is my first experience of remembering my alien encounter was when my parents were taken on board a spacecraft that we were coming back from my grandparents' cottage. So here these grotesque creatures were discussing about whether to keep me or to let me go. And I looked over at them and I thought to myself how grotesque and ugly they were. And instantly I knew then that they were reading my mind, or could read my mind, because the anger right at the instant when I thought that and they looked over at me, oh my goodness, they were pissed. So I instantly looked back down at the floor so I wouldn't be looking at them, and I thought into my head, saying to them, well, I'm sorry to offend you, but compared to what humans look like and what you look like, it's something really hard for us to accept. And that's basically the last thing that I remember, other than being back in my car and it's like, oh my goodness, there's my turnoff. I believe that this rogue government, this rogue military operation that's working secretly within our government, they evidently are collecting between $8 and $10 trillion for their black budget. But I believe they have an agreement with the aliens to abduct and to do their experiments on a certain number of us humans. Maybe that's why I was allowed to be released, is because I'm part of that family that they've been tracking for generations. I don't know. But I don't think that all this recent activity of the drones along the East Coast has got anything to do with them. They only got maybe, 4 or 5 years until, their agenda of 2030 is put into play. And they really fear our new elect president. There's so many things that they want to put into play for their new world order. One of them being digital banking. And a disaster would be the perfect opportunity to do that, especially if our gold reserves is suddenly, instantly vaporized. Or let's say the gold of other countries' reserves is suddenly vaporized. What are they going to do to keep commerce going, but to put in the digital dollars? Once that happens, then they're going to be able to control what you buy, how often you buy, what you can buy and can't buy. Come and collect your weapons and prevent you from buying any more weapons. No means of self-defense, unless you want to use a hammer or a sword or a knife. Remember when Biden was talking about an uprising and threatening the people here, saying the fact that, well, we got the fighter jets and what do you have? They have evidently right now over 1,000 drones that the government has made. Can't say the government because these companies don't claim to be part of any one government other than the one world system, which would be Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, Raytheon, etc. And to think that because of reverse engineering, they have the exact same technology that the aliens have. And now the aliens are probably more worried about the violence that we show, not just towards each other, but towards them. Maybe it's like Star Trek. They were told not to interfere with the development of the U.S., but now if we got laser-directed EMPs to bring down their crafts, they're probably a little worried about what our capabilities now are. Evidently, a third of our national debt goes to these black budgets. You know the old saying, when the government says, I'm here to help, yeah, you better run the other way. Yeah, the current upcoming president has said that he's got no plans to going to Bedminster. There's another channel that I do watch. He does like to hear himself talk, I think, though. But in one of his recent videos, he talked about how the government has approached him to buy over 250,000 iodine tablets in case of radiation, I believe it is. And that was Canadian Prepper, if any of them you'd like to hop on over and watch him. So I'm sure Trump does know about different things that are up and coming and the threats. Myself, I would probably move as far away as possible if I had the possibility, the capability of moving to get out of these areas in case of a false flag attack. I don't believe it would be some other foreign government, even though they would blame it on a foreign government. If they did do a detonation of nuclear, even a dirty bomb, in my opinion, it would be our own government. There's already been talk about afterwards how they're going to do several events where we would be under martial law, and to go outside to do your shopping, you'd have to wear a hazmat suit because of the radiation. Yeah, which makes me wish, or maybe I will get my radiation monitor back. I don't know. I hope so. Yeah, I told you how it was stolen from me. Yeah. But whenever they do decide to do this, it wouldn't just be here in the United States. Like I said, they want to get rid of the world's gold reserves so they can put us on a digital currency around the world to have control of the people around the world. So, what are your thoughts? Put your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. I hope we have a very Merry Christmas. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Please stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. God bless you. Bye.